Hello and welcome to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah, and in today's video I have a list of 12 different ideas of things you can declutter this month, this August. Of course, you can declutter anything at any point, but I like to give seasonal suggestions that might benefit you to think about items maybe that at this point of year you don't need anymore. And let's jump right in. The first thing you could let go of are extra travel mugs or water bottles. It is definitely great to use a travel mug or a reusable water bottle, but how many are needed? I know we certainly have more than one reusable water bottle, as it's nice for each person in the household to have one, or to have an extra one or two when you are maybe putting them in the dishwasher or hand washing them to help you be hygienic. But how many really are needed? A lot of times water bottles are given as promotional items or sometimes as gifts, but there's also a quality difference between the types of either reusable water bottles or travel mugs that are out there, and I would encourage you to let go of the ones that you never use, that you probably won't ever use, and just have lower quality. While you might be in your kitchen, a second thing you can let go of are extra sauce packets or little condiment, things that might come with different takeout food. Maybe there's extra napkins or disposable silverware that you can use up. It's very likely these have built up a bit, especially as a lot of restaurants have been shifting to go or takeaway options rather than having people dine in the restaurant. And sometimes these places give you napkins and sauce packets and that extra stuff, and maybe you're not actually using it or needing it. So with these items, if they could be useful, try using them up. Of course, these single-use items are not great for the environment at all. Unfortunately, though, since they're already in your home, the problem has been done. They were already created. So rather than just throwing them away directly, try to use them up. So whether it's napkins, use those instead of paper towels for a little bit. You could use those as people's napkins before shifting back into whatever you normally use. You've got options, but see if you can kind of work through some of those, just because long term, we don't want these stashes of garbage-like items piling up and taking up valuable space. If you have any one-time clothing items, those could be targets that you could let go of. And with these, we often see them play a role at formal events. Maybe you purchased a dress or some accessories, a pair of shoes that were designed for one event, and then after that event's over, maybe you stopped wearing it and you didn't return to it. Of course, you obviously decide what you want to return to, what you don't want to return to. But if there's something that you realistically don't see yourself wearing again, then there's no reason it should be sticking around long term. And in the future, you could consider renting these items or even shopping secondhand. I know I have found a lot of great selection of secondhand formal wear because I think a lot of people wear it for one time and it's still in great condition, but then they no longer need it. So definitely check that out in the future. While we're talking about clothing, if you haven't quit fast fashion yet, now could be a great time. While this is by no means going to be a comprehensive overview of fast fashion, in general, most of the brands that you might commonly find at big box stores are fast fashion. And the idea behind it, just a very generalized overview here, is that these items are made very quickly by workers who may not be treated well or definitely not getting paid a living wage. And there could be a lot of pollution coming from these industries. And the desire for companies to make big profit leads them to cranking out these different pieces of clothing at a very quick rate that really doesn't benefit anyone besides the company and also the consumer, in the sense that they get cheaper stuff. But again, at what cost? There is a cost behind that. And so I definitely encourage you to look more up about fast fashion, as well as thinking about how you can shift your fashion consumption patterns a little bit to either more ethical companies. They'll likely tell you that their workers are paid a living wage. Maybe they're using more sustainable fabrics. I know a couple that I have worked with and really have enjoyed myself are Organic Basics and Pact. I find they have a really great selection, but there's quite a range. And I know for me, shopping secondhand has been one of the best alternatives because fast fashion doesn't pay workers well and takes advantage of a lot of these systems. Slow fashion or more ethical fashion does cost more because that's what it should cost if people were being treated properly. So a way around that is to purchase secondhand where you can get prices actually even cheaper than those normal like fast fashion prices at a regular big box store. So I know that's worked out really well for me. And I kind of like that there's just so many options there, so many different brands that you can try on. And because that's secondhand, someone else already purchased that item and the damage was done. So by me purchasing it secondhand, there are not those same issues as if I purchased something new. Next up are backpacks. As we find ourselves in back to school season, although a very different looking back to school season, the next ideas here are going to kind of connect to that. So if you got extra backpacks, maybe they were from kids back in the day when they were going to school and now they're grown up, or maybe you just have more than you need, let's go ahead and consider donating those. This is a great time of year to be doing that. Next up, school or office supplies. These are something we might have extra stored, but are you actually going to get to them? Some supplies essentially do expire, like pens or markers might dry up, so we don't want to be stockpiling these items. If you've got more than you realistically need, consider sending some of them, especially if they're unopened, to schools in your area or even office buildings. As school looks very different for a lot of people this year, one thing that we're hearing a lot of, at least within the teacher and education space, is that students cannot share supplies. And in many schools, teachers have been providing supplies for their students, especially in lower income communities. I don't know what that looks like for those teachers now and for what that looks like for students, but I think overall some extra supplies will probably be helpful. Next up is partially used notebooks. If you have any of these that are sitting around and you're not sure, do you save them for the extra space or do you recycle them? Let's make a decision and move forward with it. I know if I do have partially used notebooks, I will often use the back of them in, I guess, a very informal bullet journal style. I wouldn't say I'm too calculated with it. A lot of the times it just ends up being like a to-do list or my schedule, just very loose outline. But that's the way I go through them. And then after I've worked through that with my to-do lists, those aren't anything that I want to save, so I just recycle the notebook. I actually just recycled this one this morning before filming this. So if you do find yourself with some of those half-used notebooks, let's make a decision. Let's recycle it or let's try to use it. Either one is great as long as you're moving forward. If you happen to have old ink cartridges, you could also take care of those. Sometimes these items that we save up to take somewhere, they build up for a while and we don't take action. So I recommend looking up in your area or maybe at one of your local stores. I believe Best Buy, for example, is a popular store that will accept ink cartridges among some office supply stores as well. Consider taking those ink cartridges there. I know there's also mail-in programs, but let's just get them out of the house. Likewise, if you have any broken scanners or printers or copiers, anything like that, I find sometimes they can become obsolete fairly quickly, and they're also bulky sometimes. If it hasn't been working for a long time, why are you still holding on to it? Let's move forward and let it go. Next up, do you have any old paint? This one doesn't relate as much to some of our other topics, but we are shifting some things around in our space as we're preparing for a bit of work around the house. And I just think it's a good reminder, if you've got old paint that's past its prime or is no longer, relevant in your space, maybe it's a color from before you painted it something else, let's dispose of that. Obviously, all paint is different, but you can let it dry out before disposing. The final two don't relate to physical clutter, but things like mental clutter, schedule clutter, and digital clutter. So idea number 11 is to declutter your to-do list. Now maybe this is my teacher brain, but I know at this time of year, I find that suddenly I have lots of different projects I want to be working on, lots of different things happening. And because of that, if I'm not careful, my to-do list can get pretty long and overwhelming. So I always have to remember to take it back to a top 3 tasks for the day. Or you can adjust that number if you want. Some people have a top 1, some people do a top 5, etc. But I think about, okay, Sure, there's a lot on my plate right now, but what are the 3 most important things that I need to do? And I'm going to prioritize those first. So I encourage you, if your to-do lists are getting a little crazy, let's prioritize 3 things. If you get more than those 3 things done, that's great. But focus on those 3 first, especially if they're a bit of a tougher task. Let's make them happen and move forward. Finally, ideal number 12 is digital distractions. If there is a certain app, website, program that you find distracting you, either on your phone, a tablet, your computer, any device, do you need to have it there? Could you uninstall that app from your phone? Could you block yourself from using a certain website or program? If these digital distractions are problematic, there are tools that can help you avoid that, or you can set some boundaries for yourself. So go ahead and audit how you're spending your time digitally and see if there's any adjustments you can make. That wraps up this month's video about 12 things to get rid of. But if you did not catch last month's video, I talked about 15 things you can get rid of in July, which you can catch right over here, as well as another video you might like. And if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, I create videos helping you live your best life with less, and you can do that right up here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.